Opportunity came sooner than expected when Matteo burst into their penthouse one afternoon, waving a brightly coloured flyer like it was an Olympic torch. "Big school event Friday," he announced, shoving the paper at Robert. Robert took it, scanning the details. An art showcase. His stomach sank slightly. He hadn't set foot in a school since his own graduation. Conference rooms and board meetings were his natural habitat, not PTA gatherings and glitter-covered bullet. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but the chaos that once overwhelmed him had begun to feel normal. Burnt toast experiments became part of breakfast routines. Pillow forts replaced conference calls in the evenings. Even the endless chatter during movie nights grew on him. Somehow, he liked it. Liked the way Matteo transformed his sleek penthouse from a museum into a home. Liked finding drawings scattered across his desk and cookie crumbs clinging to his expensive suits. Though he'd never admit it aloud, he even liked how Matteo challenged him, kept him on his toes. Which is why, when the knock came on his office door one afternoon, followed by Margot's unusually tense voice saying, "You're going to want to take this in private," Robert had no idea that everything was about to unravel. Standing in the hallway was a woman who looked like she'd stepped straight out of a courtroom drama. Her posture was rigid, her gaze sharp, her composure so polished it screamed preparation. Robert didn't rise. "That's not your call to make." Victoria sighed, pressing her lips together. For a moment, her voice softened, almost as though she were trying to be reasonable. "I don't doubt that you care about him, but Matteo is family. He belongs with us." Her words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Robert felt the walls closing in, the ground shifting beneath him. This wasn't just about custody. It was about identity, belonging, love. And for the first time, Robert realized that stepping up wasn't just about showing up for Matteo. It was about fighting for him too. Ask, explain. Robert had always prided himself on being untouchable, at least digitally. His laptop was locked down with security settings so intense that not even NASA's finest could crack them. But as he sat there, staring at the screen one evening, he realized something far more daunting than any cyber threat. He couldn't outsource fatherhood. No more avoidance. No more excuses. It was time to step up. The op. No more excuses. It was time to step up. The op. It was time to step up. No, maybe. He wasn't sure. All he knew was that this absurd little doodle hit him harder than any quarterly earnings report ever had. "Do you like it?" Matteo asked, watching him carefully. Robert cleared his throat, forcing his voice to stay steady. "It's something." Matteo grinned. "You love it." Robert exhaled, shaking his head. "It's getting framed." And it did. The next morning, the stick figure portrait of me and my dad sat proudly on Robert's desk in his sleek. minimalist office. Margot, passing by, stopped dead in her tracks. "Are you okay? Did you hit your head?" Robert sipped his coffee, unfazed. "Shut up, Margot." She smirked, walking off with a parting quip. "Welcome to fatherhood, boss." For the first time in his life, Robert started to feel like he might actually be getting the hang of this whole parenting thing. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but the chaos that once overwhelmed him had begun to feel normal. If Clara was still here, she wouldn't have left him with you. Robert's hands curled into fists. He didn't know what Clara would have wanted. He'd never get the chance to ask her, but he knew Matteo. He knew the kid who had wormed his way into Robert's meticulously controlled life. The one who drew ridiculous stick figure portraits of them. The one who turned his sterile penthouse into a home. And now this stranger thought she could just walk in and take him away? No. Robert said flatly. Victoria's expression hardened. "You don't get to just say no." "Yes, I do. You work 70-hour weeks," she snapped. "You're not cut out for this." Robert glared at her. "That's not your call to make." Victoria sighed, pressing her lips together as if trying to soften her tone. "Look, I don't doubt that you care about him, but Matteo is family. He belongs with us." Her words stung, not because they were wrong, but because they landed too close to the truth. Robert worked long hours. He wasn't perfect. "Come on! You have to see mine!" Reluctantly, Robert followed him to one of the displays. He braced himself for disappointment. After all, how good could a kid's drawing be? But when Matteo pointed to his piece, Robert froze. It wasn't just any drawing. It was them. Stick figure versions of them. There was Robert, complete with exaggerated eyebrows, a scowl, and a briefcase so large it dwarfed his stick figure body. Next to him stood Matteo, beaming with a smile so big it practically leapt off the page. Above them, in bold, messy letters, were the words, "Me and my dad." Robert stared at it longer than he intended, his throat tightening inexplicably. "Do you like it?" Matteo asked, watching him carefully. Robert cleared his throat, forcing his voice to stay steady. "It's something." Matteo grinned. "You love it." Robert exhaled, shaking his head. "It's getting framed." And it did. By Monday morning, the stick figure masterpiece sat proudly on Robert's desk, right where everyone see. Robert's grip tightened on the edge of his desk. "Excuse me." Victoria crossed her arms. "You're not his real father." Something cold settled in Robert's chest. "The DNA test says otherwise." She exhaled sharply, as if his response confirmed everything she already suspected. "You might be his biological father, but you didn't even know he existed until a few weeks ago. Clara raised him. Our family raised him. And now you think you can just step in and play dad?" Robert's jaw tightened. "I know exactly what to do with him." "Oh, do you?" Victoria shot back, arching a brow. "Because from what I hear, you're still figuring it out. Meanwhile, I've been in his life since the day he was born. If Clara were still here, she wouldn't have left him with you." Robert's fists clenched. He didn't know what Clara would have wanted. He'd never get the chance to ask her. But he knew Matteo. He knew the boy who had wormed his way into Robert's heart. The one who drew ridiculous stick figure portraits of the... Robert stared at Victoria, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He had faced corporations, ruthless businessmen who would stab their own partners in the back for profit. But this was a fight he had never prepared for. And then it hit him. Matteo had heard everything. The boy stood in the hallway, half hidden behind the doorway, his hands clenched at his sides, his face unreadable. Robert's stomach dropped as he realized what that meant. Victoria noticed too, straightening slightly as she turned to Matteo. "Matto," she said, her voice suddenly gentle. "I know this is a lot, but I just want what's best for you." Matteo didn't respond. He simply looked at Robert, and for the first time since they'd met, Robert saw doubt flicker in his son's eyes. It gutted him. Robert took a hesitant step forward. "Matteo, you don't have to pretend. I want to stay," Matteo blurted out, his voice small, barely above a whisper. "If you don't want me to stay, just say it." The words struck Robert. Robert had expected a war. Long, drawn-out court hearings, lawyers slinging accusations, Victoria using every angle she could to take Matteo away from him. But in the end, the judge saw what mattered. Robert showed up. He didn't just throw money at the situation or rely on his name to sway the decision. He stood in that courtroom, heart on the line, and proved that he wasn't just some absent biological father trying to make up for lost time. He was Matteo's dad. Victoria had fought hard, but she couldn't argue against the evidence. She had been distant in Matteo's life, barely involved beyond the occasional holiday visit. Robert, in just a short time, had given Matteo more stability, more love, and more family than she had ever offered. When the judge officially granted Robert full custody, he felt something in his chest loosen, something he hadn't even realized he'd been holding on to. He had won, not just in the legal sense, but in the way that actually mattered. Matteo was his now, off. Actually kind of cool. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Robert sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Matto beamed at him from the stage. "You're welcome," he said smugly when he finally returned to Robert's side. Robert muttered something about cancelling his allowance, but the damage was already done. Everyone loved Matto for weeks after. Executives and employees alike kept bringing it up, half teasing, half genuinely endeared by the sight of their famously ICO being reduced to just a dad in front of a room full of people. And honestly, Robert didn't mind. Matto had become his world in ways he never expected. He taught the kid how to tie a tie, an absolute disaster at first, considering Matto nearly strangled himself with the knot. In return, Matto tried to teach Robert how to be cool, which according to him meant wearing baseball caps backward and learning dad jokes. Neither lesson was particularly successful. "You're hopeless," Matto groaned one afternoon, dramatically flopping onto the couch, Robert flipping. This was it, the thing he'd been chasing all along without even realizing it. A family, a home. Matteo, the whirlwind of energy that had turned Robert's carefully ordered world upside down, suddenly flopped down beside him with a contented sigh. He stretched out like a cat basking in sunlight, his arms splayed dramatically across the wooden planks of their treehouse floor. "I've decided," Matteo announced, his tone brimming with the kind of confidence only a child could muster. Robert raised an eyebrow, amused despite himself. "Oh? And what's that?" "This is the best treehouse in the entire world," Matteo declared, as if this were a fact universally acknowledged by all mankind. Robert smirked, leaning back on his elbows. "Well, I should hope so. It cost enough." Matteo frowned slightly, turning his head to look at Robert with an intensity that caught him off guard. "That's not why it's the best, though." Robert blinked, surprised by the seriousness in Matteo's voice. "Oh?" Matteo hesitated. "Thanks for reading, and I'll see you in the next story." Ask Explain This was it, the thing he'd been searching for all along. A family, a home. Matteo, the ever-unpredictable whirlwind of energy, suddenly flopped down beside him with a contented sigh. "I've decided," he announced, as though delivering a proclamation to the universe. Robert raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering across his face. That's dangerous. Matteo ignored him entirely, staring up at the wooden beams above them. This is the best treehouse in the world. Robert smirked, leaning back on his elbows. I should hope so. It cost enough. Matteo turned his head, frowning slightly. His tone carried a seriousness that caught Robert off guard. You know that's not why it's the best, right? Robert blinked, momentarily stunned by the weight behind those words. Oh? Matteo hesitated, then shrugged, picking at a loose thread on his sleeve. It's the best because it's ours. Something tightened in Robert's brain. Thanks for reading, and I'll see you in the next story. Ask Explain This. Was it the thing he'd been searching for all along? A family. A home. Matteo, the ever unpredictable whirlwind of energy, suddenly flopped down beside him with a contented sigh. I've decided, he announced, as though delivering a proclamation to the universe. Robert raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering across his face. That's dangerous. Matteo ignored him entirely, staring up at the wooden beams above them. This is the best treehouse in the world. Robert smirked, leaning back on his elbows. I should hope so. It cost enough. Matteo turned his head, frowning slightly. His tone carried a seriousness that caught Robert off guard. You know, that's not why it's the best, right? Robert blinked, momentarily stunned by the weight behind those words. Oh? Matteo hesitated, then shrugged, picking at a loose thread on his sleeve. Thanks for reading, and I'll see you in the next story. Ask Explain This. Was it the thing he'd been searching for all along? A family. A home. Matteo, the boy who had turned his world upside down, suddenly flopped down next to him with a contented sigh. I've decided, he announced matter-of-factly. Robert raised an eyebrow, leaning back against the wooden planks of the treehouse floor. That's dangerous. Matteo ignored him, stretching out like he owned the place. Which in a way, he did. This is the best treehouse in the world. Robert smirked, crossing his arms over his chest. I should hope so. It cost enough. Matteo turned his head, frowning slightly as though Robert had missed the entire point. You know that's not why it's the best, right? Robert blinked, caught off guard by the seriousness in Matteo's tone. Oh? Matteo hesitated, then shrugged, fiddling with a loose thread on his sleeve. It's the best because it's ours. Something tightened in Robert's chest.